Welcome to Life Stories, where one photograph can unravel a lifetime of lies. Imagine handing a stranger their coffee, only to discover they've been carrying a picture of your dead mother in their wallet, without any explanation. That's exactly what happened to Jasmine, a waitress with no ties to the powerful, who suddenly finds herself staring down a billionaire, a buried past, and a truth that could change everything she thought she knew about love, identity, and betrayal. This is a story about the price of silence, the cost of legacy, and the courage it takes to confront the ghosts we never knew we were chasing. If you've ever wondered what you'd do when the past knocks on your door in a three-piece suit, stay with us. Let's begin. The neon sign buzzed faintly outside the roadside diner in Portland, Oregon, casting flickering red light onto rain-slick pavement. Inside, the air smelled of burnt coffee and vinyl booths worn soft by years of late-night souls passing through. Jasmine Miller, apron smudged with the day's exhaustion, wiped down the counter for what felt like the 100th time that night. She didn't mind the silence. It gave her space to think. About her bills. About the way the world kept turning without ever giving her a break. And about her mother, Angela Miller, gone now for nearly a year. A woman who had raised her alone, quietly, with dignity, and with secrets Jasmine never questioned. Until tonight. The bell above the door chimed, sharp and out of place in the lull of 2:17 a.m. Jasmine looked up, expecting a trucker or a local nursing a hangover. Instead, in walked a man who didn't belong in a place like this. Not in that tailored navy suit. Not with shoes that probably cost more than her rent. He moved like someone who'd never been told no. Like he owned the world. And maybe he did. He didn't speak at first, just took a seat by the window and stared out at the rain. Jasmine approached with her notepad, her voice barely disguising curiosity. "What can I get you?" He didn't glance up. "Black coffee. Strong." She nodded, brought it over minutes later, and placed the mug gently in front of him. No thank you. No eye contact. That should have been the end of it. But as he reached for his wallet, something slipped from it. A photograph, curling slightly as it landed face up on the floor between them. Jasmine bent down, more from instinct than interest, and picked it up. Her breath vanished. Her mother's face stared back at her from the photograph. Younger, softer maybe, but unmistakably her. The gentle smile, the hopeful eyes. The same photo her mother had kept in a small wooden box, tucked away with letters Jasmine never dared open. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edges of the picture. "Where did you get this?" Her voice came out hoarse, strangled by disbelief. The man finally looked at her, piercing gray-blue eyes, cold, calculating. But behind the steel, something shifted. Recognition? Guilt? "You must be mistaken," he said smoothly, plucking the photo from her grasp and sliding it back into his wallet like it meant nothing. But Jasmine saw it, the slight tremble in his fingers, the way he avoided her gaze now. "I'm not mistaken," she said more firmly this time. "That's my mother." He stood suddenly, pulling a $100 bill from his wallet and setting it on the counter like a silencing bribe. "Forget this ever happened." She followed him, stumbling from behind the counter. "Wait, please, who are you? How do you know her?" He didn't answer. The rain was heavier now as he stepped outside toward a sleek black town car idling at the curb. A driver in uniform held the door open. Jasmine's breath caught. He was getting away. "Please," she said again, desperation cracking her voice. "Tell me how you knew her." He paused, one hand on the car door. For a heartbeat, she thought he might answer. But when he turned to her, his expression was unreadable. "Forget this," he repeated. Then he disappeared into the car, the door thudding shut like a final verdict. The engine growled, and within seconds, he was swallowed by the night. Jasmine stood in the rain, soaked and shivering, the $100 bill fluttering behind her. That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she sat hunched over her laptop, the hum of her space heater barely cutting through the cold that had settled in her chest. She didn't know the man's name, had no credit card receipt, no business card, nothing except his face, now burned into her memory. She scoured pages of Forbes profiles, corporate CEO lists, real estate moguls. It took hours. And then she found him. Alexander Blake, CEO of Blake International Holdings, a billionaire real estate tycoon whose name was stitched into the skyline from Los Angeles to London. Jasmine clicked on article after article. He was a man the world admired, philanthropist, empire builder. But nowhere, not once, was the name Angela Miller mentioned. There were no links, no past relationships, no buried scandal, just silence. Jasmine's fists clenched. That photograph wasn't a mistake. He had known her mother deeply, intimately, and yet he had erased her. At dawn, Jasmine retrieved the wooden box from under her bed. It smelled faintly of lavender and thyme. Inside were faded cards, church bulletins, a pressed rose, and something else, a small velvet pouch. Inside was a necklace, delicate, silver, engraved with 3 words, forgive, love, begin. On the back, a tiny photograph was affixed, and in that photo, unmistakably, was Alexander Blake, younger, smiling, standing behind Angela, his arms wrapped around her shoulders. Her heart stopped. Angela Miller had never told Jasmine who her father was. Not once. Jasmine had always assumed he was gone, dead, or worse, irrelevant. But now the truth pierced her like ice. Her father was one of the richest men in America, and he had tried to pretend she didn't exist. Could you forgive the man who abandoned your mother for power, then erased your existence to protect his reputation? If your entire identity was built on a lie, would you chase the truth no matter the cost? Jasmine's next move will shatter not only her own world, but his. The question is, who will survive what's coming in part 2? The skyscraper loomed above her, a glass and steel monolith cutting into the gray Portland sky. Jasmine stood motionless outside the headquarters of Blake International Holdings, her fingers tight around the pendant that had rewritten everything she thought she knew about her life. Her mother's handwriting still haunted her. This belonged to your father. One day, you'll understand. The city buzzed around her in oblivious motion, horns blaring, heels clicking against pavement, but Jasmine felt like she was underwater. Every sound muffled, every breath thick with the weight of what she was about to do. Inside the building, everything was sleek, sharp, and cold. The receptionist at the front desk looked up with the same well-practiced smile Jasmine had seen the first time. But Jasmine wasn't the same girl who had slipped through the security gates a few nights ago, with nothing but adrenaline and rage. She walked with certainty now, purpose, grief dressed in steel. I need to speak with Alexander Blake. It's urgent. The woman began to protest, but Jasmine didn't wait. She reached into her coat pocket and placed the necklace onto the counter with deliberate care. The receptionist's smile faltered. Her eyes flicked to the engraved words, then to Jasmine's face, as if seeing her clearly for the first time. She picked up the phone with a shaky hand. Security approached within seconds, but Jasmine didn't flinch. She stood tall, staring them down. Before they could speak, a voice cut through the tense air. Let her in. Alexander Blake stood at the end of the corridor, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Jasmine thought he might turn around again, disappear like before, but this time he waited. She followed him silently through polished glass doors into his office. A cavern of leather and marble overlooking the Willamette River. He gestured for her to sit, but she remained standing. This, she said, placing the pendant on his desk, was in a box my mother left for me. You were in the photo. She never told me who you were. Alexander sat, his hands clasped tightly in front of him. The man who had radiated control days ago now looked like he was holding himself together by threads. She kept it, he murmured, more to himself than to her. She left it for me, Jasmine corrected, because she knew I'd need answers one day. Today is that day. He looked up at her. I didn't know. I swear to you, Jasmine, I had no idea she was pregnant. If I had... He stopped himself, the words catching. But you did know her. You loved her? Yes, he said, and there was no hesitation. I did. I loved her more than I've ever admitted to anyone. Then why did you leave her? He stood slowly, walked to the window, listened, and stared out at the fog rolling over the water. Because I was a coward. My family, my father, made it clear that staying with Angela meant being cut off. No inheritance, no seat at the table. I told myself I'd come back for her, but by the time I tried, she was gone. She left no trace. Jasmine's throat tightened. You chose money over love, power over a woman who would have followed you anywhere. I thought I could fix it later, he said, voice raw. But there was no later. She erased me. And she was right to. A long silence stretched between them. Jasmine's fingers curled into fists at her side. Do you know what it's like growing up wondering why your mother flinched every time you asked about your father? Why she kept so much of herself locked away? He turned from the window. His eyes, glassy with unshed emotion, finally met hers. No, he whispered. But I want to. And that was when the door opened. A tall woman in a tailored pantsuit stepped into the office without knocking. Her expression froze when she saw Jasmine. Then her eyes narrowed. Alex, she said tightly. What's going on? He looked startled. Elaine, I didn't know you were in town. You didn't return my calls. I flew in from New York this morning, and now I find a stranger in your office holding that necklace. Her gaze locked onto Jasmine with practiced disdain. Who is this? Jasmine's chest constricted. Alexander opened his mouth but hesitated. Elaine turned back to Jasmine. Are you some ex? A journalist? Or just another person trying to squeeze money out of the Blake name? The air in the room dropped 10 degrees. Jasmine didn't flinch. I'm his daughter. Elaine went still. Excuse me? She's telling the truth, Alexander said quietly. Angela was pregnant. I didn't know. Jasmine is... Do not finish that sentence, Elaine snapped. Her voice turned to ice. You realize what this would mean? Legally? Publicly? Jasmine saw it in real time. The shift. The weight of legacy. Reputation. Stakes. Elaine turned back to her, smile brittle. I suggest you reconsider whatever fantasy this is. Whatever game you think you're playing. It ends now. Jasmine's jaw clenched. Her mother had hidden this world from her, and maybe for good reason. But standing here now, she wasn't a waitress anymore. She wasn't some girl from the outskirts of the city. She was the daughter of a man with a kingdom built on secrets, and she had just cracked open the gates. Would you walk away from the truth to preserve your peace, or would you risk everything to claim the identity that was stolen from you? What happens when love, legacy, and blood collide, and someone refuses to stay silent any longer? Jasmine has only scratched the surface. What she's about to uncover will not just reshape her life, but ignite a war no one saw coming. The silence in the room stretched like glass about to shatter. Jasmine stood still, her heart pounding in her chest, her fingernails digging into the edge of Alexander Blake's mahogany desk. Elaine's words hung in the air, cold and calculated, but Jasmine didn't back down. She had come too far for that. Alexander hadn't moved, but his face was pale, his shoulders tense. Jasmine could see the war inside him, the man who had built an empire, and the man who had loved a woman named Angela Miller in secret. Now both versions of him stood on the edge of collapse. Leave us, he said finally to Elaine. She stared at him. You can't be serious. I am, he said, his tone harder than before. Please. Elaine's lips curled into a bitter smile, but she turned and walked out, heels clicking sharply against the marble. The door shut with a soft thud, and the room felt suddenly heavier. Alexander ran a hand through his hair, then looked at Jasmine. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that. She reminded me of someone, Jasmine said quietly. My mother. The way she could cut a person down without ever raising her voice. He gave a faint, rueful smile. Elaine's been my lawyer for nearly 2 decades. She protects what I've built. And I threaten it, Jasmine said. I'm not here to destroy you. I just wanted the truth. I needed to know I wasn't some mistake, that she wasn't forgotten. Alexander walked around the desk and stood in front of her. You were never a mistake. Your mother, Angela, was the only person who ever saw me for who I was, not who I was supposed to become. And I threw that away. Jasmine's throat tightened. She never told me, not even once, not even when she was sick. I think she wanted to protect me from this. She didn't want you to grow up in a world that only valued names and headlines, he said. She wanted you to have a life untouched by all this weight. But now I'm here, Jasmine said, and I can't pretend I don't know anymore. He nodded slowly, his voice trembling. I don't know how to be your father. I don't even know if I deserve that chance. You don't? She said honestly. But you do deserve the truth. So do I. From her bag, she pulled out the velvet pouch and placed it gently on the desk. This necklace, it meant something to her. Maybe more than I understood at first. Forgive. Love. Begin. She engraved that, knowing one day I might come looking. Alexander picked up the pendant, turning it over in his hand with a reverence that surprised her. His eyes shimmered. She kept this all those years? She did, Jasmine said, and she left it for me. I think she wanted me to decide what comes next. He looked at her, pain softening his voice. And what does come next? Jasmine hesitated. I don't know. I don't want your money. I don't want a headline. I just want a place to put all this anger, all this sadness. I want to stop pretending I'm not still grieving her. And maybe I want to know the man she once loved, but slowly. On my terms. He nodded, his breath shaky. Whatever pace you need, I'll follow it. Just don't shut the door completely. I'm not, she said, but don't expect it to be easy. I don't, he whispered. But for the first time in my life, I'm ready to earn something instead of inherit it. They sat together for a while, neither speaking, the city moving beyond the glass behind them. It wasn't peace. Not yet. But it was something close to the beginning of peace. In the weeks that followed, Jasmine returned to the diner, not because she had to, but because it was familiar, grounding. She didn't tell anyone about Alexander. Not yet. They met once a week at a quiet bookstore he owned, but never advertised. He'd sit across from her with books he thought she'd love, asking questions that weren't rehearsed. He didn't try to impress her. He didn't offer gifts. He just listened. Sometimes they'd talk for 10 minutes. Sometimes they'd argue. But always, at the end, he'd say thank you for showing up, for giving him a chance to learn who she was. One night, months later, she brought him a letter. From her, she said. He opened it carefully, hands trembling. The ink had faded slightly, but the words were still strong. If Jasmine finds you, it means she's ready. I never hated you. I just couldn't raise her in your shadow. But if she's old enough to look for you, maybe she's old enough to forgive you too. Not for me, for herself. If you're holding this, please don't let go again. Alexander folded the letter, unable to speak. Jasmine looked out the window, heart heavy, but full. This was her mother's final gift. Clarity, closure, and the freedom to decide her own story. As they stepped out of the bookstore together that night, Portland's sky was painted in soft gold and fading blue. A slow drizzle misted the streets, and for the first time in a long while, Jasmine didn't feel lost in the storm. She wasn't whole. Not yet. But she was no longer searching alone. How did this story make you feel? Did the ending resonate with your heart in a personal way? Comment 100. If you felt moved by Jasmine's journey, where in the world are you watching from? Share this story with someone who needs it, and thank you for watching Life Stories.